Got it.
Good. Okay. Oops.
Hi.
I'm going to welcome everyone, and we'll get started in about a minute. Give a few more people a chance to log in before we start. Okay. Welcome to Messy Conversations. This is our ninth, I believe, messy conversation. And today's will be on mindfulness and racial justice. I'm David Tripp. I'm faculty at Antioch, Los Angeles. I'll be sort of emceeing today. And I want to start just with a couple of announcements, and then I'll introduce our conversationalists, and we'll get going. The first is, to keep yourself muted unless you're one of the conversationalists, and that'll help a lot with background noise. And we like to utilize the chat function for questions. And so if you have questions or comments, please use the chat. I'll be monitoring the chat for questions. And in the second half of our hour together, I'll organize those and start calling on folks to ask their questions. So that's it just helps us considerably to try to get to everybody in an organized way if you'll use the chat. And what else? Yeah, we really appreciate your support of Messy Conversations. We started this summer. Our numbers have fluctuated pretty wildly. And so we encourage you to show your support by inviting people to come, encouraging people to come and participate. We want as many voices as we can get at this table. And also, if you know conversationalists that we should be in touch with, people that we should be in touch with to serve as conversationalists, or topics that you would like to see in our Messy Conversations, then contact one of the organizers, Sarah Beth Laurie, Kirsten Grimstead, Anna Kwong, Elaine Parker Gills, or myself, and we'll do our best to follow up on that. So thank you for that. We're lucky to have two wonderful conversationalists today. Raja Michelle, who's a graduate of the AULA BA program and is currently in the AULA Urban Sustainability Master's program. In addition to being a student, she's a facilitator and an educator. And one of the reasons that we invited her today is that she's the founder and former executive director of The Tree in South LA, which she founded back in 2013 to help address issues of disparities in health equity and wellness programs for that community. Since then, The Tree has trained over 135 yogis of color and is serving over 50,000 residents here in Los Angeles. So we're very happy to have Raja. And then joining Raja all the way from Ghana will be Gwendolyn King. And she's currently in Ghana doing some field work and looking at issues of Pan-African sexual health and sustainable agriculture while she's there. And she did her CYT training at the tree. So we're really happy to have both of these conversationalists. And at this point, I'll turn it over to you guys. And remember, questions in the chat.
Thank you, David. I was just going to invite us before we start talking to just take a few mindful breaths together. I love that personally. Of course, you don't have to do it. Everything's about consent. So I'm just going to invite us, and you can join or not. If you feel comfortable, you're welcome to close the eyes. If not, maybe finding a soft gaze and just relaxing the shoulders. We're going to take a nice deep inhale. So taking a deep inhale and a deep exhale. And two more. Deep inhale. And exhale. And a deep inhale. And release. Thank you all for allowing me to do that. And then Gwen, yeah, great. I was like, Gwen can just take her mic off. So we're gonna chat. One of the biggest things we were talking before we started, and I really wanna give a lot of gratitude to Gwen, because one of my dear friends and actually one of the new co-owners of the tree was originally doing this, and some things happened where that couldn't happen, and she just jumped in so graciously. So really grateful for you, Gwen, or Gwendolyn, professional world. So the mind is something that we really are very interested, both of us, because what we understand about the mind is that whatever it believes, it will find evidence for. And so when you start to understand our own way of thinking, then you start to understand the collective thinking and how the system got to be where the system is. So often, especially, of course, white Americans, we often think that we're not racist, right? And this has become a very common claiming throughout history. So even after the Civil War, I'm sure a lot of the white liberals at the time were feeling really good about themselves, right? Like, we did a good job, no more slaves. And there's this ego, right, with the mind that we have collectively built. And so the reason I'm starting kind of with that piece is because the work has, by living and working in South LA and the problematic aspects to being a white woman that embeds herself into an African-American community, right? Regardless of my intent, the education that I gained in understanding my own responsibility as a white woman, the depths of the way that we think and how it influences the way that I think and engage in this world. And then further, the level of accountability needed. And it's constant work. So there's never going to be a point, and this is in some ways true for everybody, that you will be done with your work. You will never not, you will always need to be mindful and conscious, because this is the world we inherited. We are this, we are the living history. Not much has changed, unfortunately, by the way that we have thought. We are thinking very similarly to the way that we have always thought. We've had little breaks, right? Little moments of maybe thinking different, like the lofty terms of this country. While we've enslaved, we stole people and then enslaved them. Mm-hmm. So this work is really deep for me personally, right? And has taken different form and shape for me in my life and in the way that I think, in the way that I understand. And so I wanted to address this kind of part of it, where Gwendolyn is going to bring in her experience, which is most important and most centered here. So
Yeah.
Gwendolyn, I'm going to pass to you.
Oh, yeah. Just thinking of all of that you said and the accountability, seeing it from a different perspective as a student, in hopes of becoming an instructor. And to be very cautious, because you're still unsure. You say like this thing of, oh, I'm not racist, right? Because you're in this space and we're doing this work and I'm checking myself every day. But at the same time, are we really doing the work? So coming in as a student, I do remember having all of that hesitation, like, how can I be a person of color in South LA at this beautiful studio with this beautiful mission? And then this is my mentor. Look who it is. And but checking my own internalized racism and my own racial issues, because immediately I know that there's some people who I would say in the community who would think, well, I need a Black woman at the forefront to be able to pass this along. But I actually love that we always had that constant dialogue. Like it should have been you there, because if it wasn't you, I don't think we would have had that dialogue every single day that we did, coming in, whether it was for training or just coming into a safe space where you're acknowledging, hi, I need healing, I'm in my neighborhood, and are you going to be able to like guide me through that? But thank you anyways, again, if I never thank you for it.
I think, and I love that you bring that up, because there's this really recognition. I started a 200-hour yoga teacher training, and anybody that's aware of that commodity in the world, they're average $3,500, right? And they go up to $10,000. So I decided, because I had already been trained and practicing for 10 years at that time, I decided to, not because I wanted to be honest, but because I had it, right? And it wasn't accessible and I could give it. So the experience that Gwendolyn had, so many folks had, right? There's a heartbreak that it has to, even after all of this, being in the community, I've been safe in this space, I'm excited, this training's accessible to me, and still I got to be taught by a white woman, because the shit is not done. And I sat in front of the morning of students with that, and we got through it, right? It's like, it's so real. And that's why it's so key that everything that I did was about training leadership, and why the tree has evolved into a worker-owned cooperative ran by folks of color. And the teacher training, this is the first time that I trained 2 new leaders, both African-American, and they're running the training. So it became this really powerful way of offering tools and a trade, really, and constantly pulling myself out. And how many times, how much did it take for me, just the work of it. Gwendolyn asked a question, like, it was a lot of accountability. Yeah. A profound amount of accountability that I think a lot of white people do not have the privilege to experience. That kind of, you're in the fire. There's no, you can't fuck around.
Yeah. Because you can't go outside. Literally.
It's and for myself, I think, and for a lot of us, I'm going to say, and I say this as human, a lot of us as in human, we actually don't want to do harm. I actually come from this belief that the only reason we do harm is because we're confused, truly, and believing what our mind is doing, believing those thoughts that we were born with, those thoughts that we were taught, those thoughts that we are constantly being fed, those thoughts that we were educated in.
Yeah, definitely. but it's good that we have that place to have that mental management piece, because I think that's a lot of what's going on. Because at the end of the day, it's in our heads.
Yeah.
Like we said, you know, a word that you continue to say, and it's like a cliche word when we say construction, when we say what's the definition, because it's so classic. It's like a conversation, it's a broken record we have all the time. What's the definition of race? Well, race is a social construct based off of, you know, erroneous biological, like, we know this, like we hear this social construct thing. We know that we've built it up through our child rearing, through external pressures, internal pressures. But yet it's something that still beats us every single day, that still makes us uncomfortable, that still brings up that fear, that bitterness. And I don't want the bitterness anymore. You know, like I think it's a trauma that a lot of us constantly continue to carry. And I like sweet things, you know, I want sweet taste in my mouth. I don't want any of this any longer. And you know, I said something to you earlier about it being so entrenched in us and so internalized in us that we take it everywhere. So like, say, even though I've gone through this healing of dealing with racial injustices on the in the American world, on that continent, taking it to Ghana and thinking that you're going to get out of those spaces, you're instantly hit with how much, because in the US, it's an individual level. Like, I'm confronted with you and I every single day, like the people I share spaces with. In Ghana, I'm the lightest thing that they'll see in Ghana. I'm the white person in Ghana. So it's a very interesting thing to come up against. And you realize how structural it is, because it's literally like their electrical grids that are racist. Like, it's the actual infrastructure. So I love that the tree is still there, and these dialogues are happening, and we have these messy conversations, because if we can understand that it's not as small as we want it to be. Like, I would love it just to be, this person thinks something about something small, like if it was a small thing, but it's not. It's a complex thing, and it's a layered thing, and it's a thing that's going to dismantle a lot. And I just hope that we're all ready for it, because I'm here for you. And I think that's something that we still need, because what I learned in healing, especially from, say, something like the tree, is, well, then what do you do after you're healed? Like, what do you do when the trauma is over? And I think that's something that our community doesn't talk about, because we think it's going to be there forever. We think we're always going to still be going through these racial issues, but what's at the end? So what happens when we build it back up? What happens when we get the reparations? What happens if we have the dialogues? We're having the dialogues, right? I don't know. I'm just hoping that maybe we can have more and more and more, because I forget that there are people that don't realize this.
Yeah.
And that's something that that I think is a privilege for me every day, to be open to it, to receiving it, and to be able to check it. Because some people aren't even open to it. It's literally out of sight, out of mind. So
yeah. I appreciated everything that you said, and you know, kind of touching in that trauma piece, which, going into this academic world, because we're in this world here, something that I recognize in all of this study is a lack of understanding the impacts of an oppressive system and intergenerational trauma. And even, actually, in my opinion, I have no evidence of this, and I have not studied this, but I bet you it shows up in DNA, right? We are our ancestors. We are our history. the way that we're thinking, and the way that we are even interrelating to the way that we have relationship, right? Like, it's like we can go all the way down and you can start to really understand what's going on. And that's the biggest, I think, trickery of all of this, is that we have gone through so many people are going through all this oppressive trauma, and we have gaslighted, the gaslighting, the ignoring, the American dream, you know, that was the veil, right? The caste system that we've created on anti-Blackness, that we denied. We believe that we're not in a caste system when we are completely in a caste system. So it's like that denial is something that we have to really get on the other side of as anybody that is non-Black.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, because, and then that goes deeper, I think, deeper to the superiority. Because if we're going to mindfulness, if you understand the way the mind works, we have been believing that somehow one life is of more value than another, which is absurd. Right? When you really think about it, that's absurd. So for millennia, at some point, we switched the game and we started dominating, and the patriarch took over. And today, for the last, what are we talking? 1,000 years?
Yeah.
In the last 150, the way acuteness of white supremacy, right? The way it was designed, government sanctioned white supremacy. So if we're not clear that our system was built this way, if we think that we are not creating this world, then it will just keep on going. And we'll keep feeling good about ourselves, like we fed the meter. But that's going towards this kind of, because that's how it feels like, right? Like, we're not gonna go into elections or anything, but it's those aren't roots. None of that is root stuff.
No, it's not like new.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
not new. And that trauma piece for me, like, especially for African Americans, because that's, I think we just are in a space that we have to talk about anti-Blackness, right? So it's not to discredit the other experiences of oppression. This is just where I'm coming from. And so for me, and I want Gwendolyn to speak to this, healing is a key component. You can't be under that kind of trauma, like the grace. If you can understand trauma, and then you take just a moment to understand the depth of trauma African Americans have endured for hundreds of years, it blows my mind how much they have given us as a country, as a culture, how much we've taken, their existence, their intelligence, their heart, their soul. It's like, what the fuck, you guys? I'm going off. I know nobody knew I was going to maybe do this, so I apologize. This is a whole new community for me, so I know there's a lot of F-bombs, but it feels so powerful because we're missing it so deeply, and as we miss it, people are dying. And we have taken this thinking globally, which is why in Ghana, she's a white woman, because white supremacy is just as internalized and normalized in Ghana as it is in America.
Yeah.
It is the highest crap, right?
It is definitely a product of America. It's a very strange product and byproduct to have to deal with, for sure. Because I will say there's this back to Africa movement. As much as we try to act like it doesn't exist, a lot of African Americans are like, well, if we're not going to get it together in these communities, if we're going to have these conversations and nothing's going to happen, if we are going to try our best to, figure out a new way to do this system, we're just going to leave. But what they don't realize is that there is nowhere to go. Like, that's our home. And this is a global issue that we're having. So say I came to Ghana, honestly, I came to Ghana thinking that, I'm not going to see any white people, so I'm not going to have this issue. It's only to realize that the reason I don't see any white people is because I'm the white person that they're seeing. And that in itself is just, so much trauma and so much education that I didn't even think I was ready for. Like, I thought having conversations with Americans was a hard thing to do. But now I have like a language barrier, and I have 400 years of history that I don't know anything about. And supposedly I'm telling them that they need to be involved because they are a link to us, because 400 years, they said, take them. You can take them and we'll give you some and we'll sell you some. And we tell Ghana, you're supposed to have a relationship with us because of that. And we're supposed to be family, but we're not family. It's money. So, I mean, they will be as Black family as we can be, you know, but what they want is the dollar. So I think it's just it's a very interesting dynamic to be in, because I don't know. I thought I would get out of it, maybe a little, but you know, you can't really leave when it really is it's interwoven in so much and for so long, centuries, you know, like the whole concept.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's interesting. Since that can be.
And I like that you bring up money. And I like that's, I think, unfortunately, that's really a very real barrier. And that this concept of controlling labor, which is really money, right? Of labor. And how we've been like that's why the global thinking, this is white supremacy is a worldview at this point. You know, and it goes to the money. Everybody wants to be the one on top. This idea that there is a top is something that I think is even further deeper. This idea of top and bottom, like that is the lie. When, you know, when we look at our indigenous, when we look at really our own hearts, like we just really want to enjoy each other and be in relation and feed our children and make love, you know, like we just want to live, everybody. And look what we've done, you know, look what we've done by thinking this way. And it's okay. We've done it. I used to have a t-shirt that,
yeah, I know, right? We've done it for so long. I used to have a t-shirt that says something to the effect of like, stereotypes are a real time saver. It was like my favorite shirt growing up because it was real. It's so much quicker to just be like, I know this person because I built up the conception about this person anyways. It's just quick. Yeah, and then fast. So. Yeah, and it's such a fast way that, so going into like even the mind and the ego piece, right? So that quickness that you're talking about, the stereotype, that ego gets to determine whether you're above me or below me, or I'm above you or you're below me. Oh, she's this, that means she's below me. Oh, he's this, that means he's above me. Oh, she's, you know, it's just this constant mechanism of the superiority or inferiority, because it can go either way. So sometimes people are so ego identified in their inferiority, right? Like ego shows up in victim. Yeah, definitely. I saw, I'm not really supposed to be looking at the chat, but I saw something pop up about, I mean, we'll get to everything as much as we can, but say more about how mindfulness can help us get to the other side. You mentioned this other side, because there's not just the trauma, right? There's the denial of trauma. Because I know no one likes to admit the pain. You know, we've all had our traumatic experiences, but I do want us to address saying more about how mindfulness can help us get to the other side. And then what we do when we're on the other side, because, you know, I don't think people know what to do when they're now in comfort. You live in a space of chaos for so long and you strive for this comfort. So now what do I like? And what do I do with that? And how do I maintain that and keep that? But yeah, mindfulness to the other side. Anything, any point? Yeah, I the way that I think about it, for me, mindfulness is really like a first step. Becoming aware of
yourself and what's going on in your mind. So if we're using this in the context of race, like I've had the thought of like, take any person that is light-skinned in this group and take them to a community of color, take them right to the heart of where all that stuff would come up. It would all come up. I could just put you right in one spot and it would all come up. And so being honest, going back to that honesty piece. So once you're able to be aware and be honest about it, well, now you can do something about it. Now you can question it. Now you can go, wait a minute, where is this coming from? Now you can be humble and be honest about what's really running our lives. Because this is true of the conditioning of race, and this is also true of the conditioning of gender, the patriarch, right? So it's becoming that. So step is becoming aware, and the next step is then questioning. But the awareness. Wait, so go ahead.
What was the second step after the awareness? Saying
inquiry. So to me, the deeper work in any of this sort of internal work is when you start to really question. However you and that's actually what's probably the most challenging about this work around race, because as soon as we start to question this, all of this anti-Blackness, we're going to have to question our religion. We're going to have to question our government. We question our parents. We're going to question our pastors. We're going to question every single thing that we thought was true. And that feels scary because we've identified these things to be true.
Right.
And maybe I'm wrong, right? I don't know. This is just where I'm coming from. Go ahead, Gwen.
No, I wrote something down in my journal today because I was thinking about mindfulness as well. And just like allowing myself to maybe have bad thoughts, or not bad thoughts, or to maybe have bias, you know, to be honest about that lens that we have, because it's real. And to walk around and act like you don't have bias is very, very strange. And it's okay. And, you know, when I said it's okay, like I felt good about saying it's okay, because it's not okay to necessarily have the ill thoughts without ration, but it's okay to at least acknowledge that you have them and acknowledge. And that's, I feel like that's the stem of mindfulness. Like, do you even mindful of the fact that you have these thoughts? Allow yourself to have them. Like, please allow yourself to have them, to check yourself, because how do we learn? How do we grow? How can we have, like, continue to have these messy conversations if we're not even going to even be like, oh, maybe I do feel a little bit this way, or I do feel a little bit that way. Like, if it's just a thought form, I mean, at least it's not like a knife or something. Feel free to think all you want to. I don't mind.
Yeah, I like you bringing up that piece really of like the equanimous mind. So the non-judgment, which is really the practice, because guess what? We judge the shit out of ourselves and we judge the shit out of everybody else. Right. So it's like that point of like, oh, I have this fear reaction, right? Instead of what the mind will do, because it's so scared to be a bad person, right? It's so scared to challenge any of these identities. It will compartmentalize it like it didn't happen. But if you're aware of it and you can accept it, then you have something to work with. Then you have something to be real about. You can't do anything without being honest about it. Just like why we haven't moved where we've moved. Yeah. Why do you think that gay marriage passed so quickly?
Yeah, I was ready.
Because it was led by white men.
Yeah.
I'm not trying, and we're not going there. We're just talking about the way this system works and to really understand what it really is for our brothers and sisters in this country.
I'm going to gently break in. We've got a bunch of questions that are starting to show up in the chat, and Gwendolyn's already started answering some of them. So I want to, there's a question, Clarence has a question about mindfulness and trauma, which has come up in your conversation. Clarence, you want to ask your question?
Yes, but before I do that, I want to say, Raj, I'm highly offended.
Oh,
I had no idea that you were doing all this great work in South Los Angeles as much time as we spent together on the campus of Los Angeles.
I was
So-
really ready to just totally get humbled right there and be like another educator opportunity. It's good to see your face,
I'm
Clarence.
overjoyed you're
Yes.
participating in this way. So I bless you and I thank you, because I have come to every one of these messy conversations and it's felt very Black centric. So to have a white identified Eurocentric woman sitting there with the consciousness you have to impact for us the feelings of a white woman, straight, no chaser, I so appreciate that.
Oh, thank you.
My question was simply, how do you deal with African-American students in the notion of trauma from slavery? What tools do you induce? Obviously, you express you have a consciousness of ancestry, DNA presence that promotes or that fuels some of the trauma that African Americans face. And just to put myself on spot, myself as an African American man moving through an urban environment, I many times don't check myself on my trauma, especially as it relates to police. If I'm driving a car and a police is behind me, my whole body tenses up because, first of all, my mind flashes back to the 3 times I've been brutalized by police. And it's like, you know, sometimes I walk out into the world. You can appreciate this because we're reading now The World Between You and I in Gopal's class. And, you know, Tamahashi talks about, you know, the Black body, the Black male body. Once you walk out of your door, you know, all of the systems you have to navigate just to be. So if you could address that, the trauma piece a little deeper. And Gwendolyn, I just want to say to you, thank you for joining us. November 4th, I may have to get a ticket to come to Ghana. I have a dear friend there who built her dream house. So I have a place to live and to swirl.
There's a lot of people to get to, Clarence. Thank you. But, yeah.
Thank you.
I'm here. Yeah.
I'm like, Clarence, get on out there. Okay, Claire. Yeah. So focus up. Thank you, David. So, you know, as far as me as a facilitator, where I was holding space for folks, you know, and this is actually true for me in the practice. For me, it's about getting myself out of the way. So I'm not actually doing anything. I'm just in my practice. And what it is nobody heals anybody else. Everybody heals themselves in my world. Everybody's their own healer. So it was more just holding space for people to do their work safely. For that kind of day-to-day thing with mindfulness, for me, Clarence, what I would invite you to do and what I do, you know, and PTSD is very real. And I struggle. It's hard for me, there was always this like over-identifying with victim, and I don't want to be a victim. And then also, which then denies sort of the reality of what trauma does, which I felt that in what Clarence was sharing, or that's how I was hearing it. And so for me, that first honoring how you're really feeling, honoring really what's showing up. And it's like, how do you take care? Like, okay, right now, I just need to pull over and I need to walk around and feel my feet on the earth and let my system know that I'm not hurt right now, that it, you know, it's like walking through that trauma. And then when you're not in that reaction, when that time is not up, right? When you're not managing that emotion, it's really about finding those spaces where you feel safe, finding that breath, finding that awareness. And then and that will lead you, my experience is once you start becoming aware of yourself, I don't have anything, nobody has anything to teach. Nobody has anything that everybody has the same when it comes to this kind of work and inner reality. And you have all found it in your own way, right? And to all the varying degrees and expressions of it. And so it's really that connection. You can call it whatever you want. It's that connection of, for me, of who we are beyond the trauma of that moment. And at the same time, honoring that trauma. It's like the victim has to be honored before it can be transformed. I'm going to say it again, right? Like that victim has to be honored before it can be transformed. Gwendolyn. I don't know if you wanted to add. I think, and I want to make sure because I.
Oh no, I'm just in agreement. Yeah.
Okay. That's why I had Gwen come, because I knew she'd just agree. No. That's why
I'm a yes man. Yeah. No.
did that.
So still along these lines around trauma, Patrick had a comment more than a question, but it might become a question. Patrick?
Yeah, I'm right here. I just got home from work, so I was changing the shirt. I think one of the speakers said something that just really kind of resonated with me, is that it reminded me of some work I did with abused children. Is the trauma is one thing, but then the denial of the trauma is sometimes even worse. When someone does something to you and you finally get the wherewithal to say, why'd you do that? And they say, I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't do that. I mean, some of us have gotten to the arguments about that with our significant other, and we're like, what the heck are you talking about? And it's almost worse than what actually happened. And so that just kind of sat with me for a minute and really kind of brought up some feelings.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. They've even done studies about its impact and how, and that's even the thing with folks that work with young people. That's another really big passion of mine is our young people. There's an opportunity to support their trauma at that age before they've gone through life the way we all have, and then have to figure out why we're so fucked up.
Yeah. I was just going to say something about, like you said, support. And that's one thing that is so necessary. I think that's why people are in the denial phase, because we feel like we don't have enough support. We don't have enough people who are like, it's okay to have these feelings, or it's okay to whatever it is, let's work through that. Because I mean, I can think of any of my old traumas that I was healed from. They stayed with me, and they stayed on me until I felt like they were ready to be out there and to be in the open and to find that support system, because we don't often have that support in our own family. And we're not. Like, I realize maybe when it comes to especially racialized trauma, our support, as we can see with all the turmoil, may not be, our cousin. It may not be the best friend any longer. It may be someone else. So in being willing to speak about your trauma, hopefully just find more people to have support. Definitely. That's such a big thing. And how to find people to have support, or get used to some fucked up reactions. Because I mean, you're not gonna have support all the time. We're not gonna have lovey, cushy people who are like, oh my gosh, I understand, give me a hug. There are gonna be people in our lives who are gonna be like, I don't care, and I don't get it, and I still hate this, and I still don't like it. So there's a couple things that we need to do, whether that's finding support and also being willing to realize that there are people who don't care. They're not going to give you support for it. They want to be like this. But we'll see.
So along those lines, one of our co-facilitators, Anna, has a question about how we reach others. Anna?
Right.
Thank you, David. Considering how polarized this country is, as that, I'm very happy and very honored that we have this kind of conversation. Although we're not perfect yet, we know that we are trying to learn. We're moving into, at least on the right direction. But what about those who don't share our perception? Very often is our behavior affects us how we see things. If they don't even see that there's a problem, then how can we reach out to them so that they can see how we see, and they recognize that, hey, we're in the same country. We're not in a different country. Sometimes when I look at how we describe our country, if we don't really know, we thought that we're talking about a completely different country. But when we are so polarized, how can we pull them to our side so that we have more ally on this issue?
I mean, I'll talk about a little bit with education. The education system from 0 to whatever level is white supremacy, right? So everybody has been taught a different world than is actually true, right? We've been taught a lie. So no wonder you can go to somebody and they can talk about a whole reality that is delusional. This is the same of royals at the time. They would have no idea what it felt like to be a farmer, right? So there's a disconnect that these systems of power do. They break us down as communities. You can see the way that, even again, coming back to the Black community, was strategically dismantled, right? So you're asking, how do we educate all these people that are living their happy life and think that they live a good world and are good people and not doing, basically killing people and supporting that? I think education, and I think checking our own superiority. So this is where my work comes in a lot, is, if I think that I am more conscious than you, or I am more educated, as soon as I'm in that world with anybody, I'm cutting them off. I'm disconnecting. So this is not easy work for me, at least. It's like, how do I so in my mind, I'm thinking of everybody that is not Black is who we're talking about, because there's never been a time that African Americans have not lived in this reality. This has been the reality. They have been home. They have been in it. And we have ignored it, right? So how do we wake people up? I'm working on that. And I think education's huge. And I think the way that we relate is huge. So for example, in my white family, I'm having a lot of conversations. I've had a lot of conflict because of it, because I'm not very graceful. Like, obviously you could pick up how I would be with a family dinner and people saying something that I'm pissed about. Like, I have embarrassed people, and I've done, like, that's another form of harm, right? So I've had to learn my own attachments to my mother seeing it the way that I see it. Now let's talk mother dynamics, so that it is not just about race. So we're having real conversations about so much. So those conversations with the people in our lives, standing up in spaces, white spaces, there's a lot of code words. Good neighborhood. I am offensive sometimes, not harmfully, but like, when you say that, that's actually racist. What are you talking about? Well, would you like to hear what I'm talking about? Would you like to take a moment and be educated? So that's our work. And going back to even the gaslighting, Gwendolyn's talking about support. This is why African Americans should not be waking. I mean, anybody that wants to do this work, I'm grateful for. However, it's really us. It's the privileged. It's our job. We're the ones holding all the power, which is going back again to Anna, what you're saying. How do we get us going? How do we organize? Right. Mm-hmm. And education is something that keeps coming back for me.
Mm-hmm. Definitely education, and then realizing there's the last question in the chat is whether or not we spend the time trying to change the minds of those people. That's that's up to you. That's how invested you are into your values. I can spend every single day teaching someone in Ghana the proper way to greet me and to address me. Or I can realize that there are some moments that aren't teaching lessons. But if you feel that you want to take all of those moments as teaching lessons and education and live by that, and don't be afraid to check people and to put people in their place. I love to put people in their place, and I love to be put in my place please put me back into my place, just so that we can all be cooperative and productive. I really love this last question that came in the chat about Western appropriation and Eastern spiritual practices being taught in here in the US. That hit me really hard, because actually within the last couple of days, I've like basically not known what to do with my yoga experience and my yoga knowledge and my yoga background. And I specifically wrote like, that shit is too white for me, and I'm not Indian enough for this, and I don't understand this, and how much am I also participating in cultural appropriation? Because I don't, like, to be honest, what has 200 hours really taught me in a huge, well, I have more than 200 hours, but it's like, I completely get what they're saying, what this person is saying, especially about, are you paying homage or being educated about the indigenous cultures where these practices are rooted? I want to say, in some ways, absolutely, they're honoring it. And in some ways, it's a syncretic thing. Syncretic as in fusing together what we need to like make it work for us, which is why we even have the whole concept of decolonizing yoga. Like I wrote, decolonizing yoga is like a white people thing. And then I went back and said, but honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if there are a whole bunch of people who honor yoga in a different way and who are angry at trap yoga, who are angry at who are like, you're completely watering down and misappropriating a culture and a practice, a spiritual practice. I could see it. I can definitely hear it. But I try to take everything that I do, especially when it comes to the yoga that I'm learning, is to even understand, I know this is a Western appropriated version of yoga, and me, I'm okay with what it has done for me, as long as I know, hey, I have that side to it. There are probably people who won't even go into that, to be honest. There are people who aren't even gonna think, well, is this little bit of Sanskrit that I learned, is that like I don't know. But I think it's very important to always, especially when you're in a teaching position, when you have new students who come into what is very much a spiritual practice, to have them seek out more things and have them seek knowledge for themselves, to have them formulate that home practice, to really understand, because I expect you to have questions. I expect everyone to have questions. I don't expect you to chant if you don't understand what it is. I don't expect you to say namaste, like the very basic things that we go through, like what is namaste? Like we go through that every single day, but do we teach it in like an appropriated way? I don't know, but I really love that question. And that as well. Yoga and mindfulness has deep roots in Africa, Kemet more specifically. Absolutely. If you want to get into the traditions of Kemetic yoga that are there, and then the concept of the mind, the body, the planet, all of that, you just have to dig for it. So there is a Western appropriated version of, your fit yoga, asana, like headstand people, and your Ayu yoga, fit pants, athleta, that's there. And then you have people who are actually trying to do the deeper work, who understand that, I can do pretty fancy postures, but it's really about the trauma and it's really about the healing. Because I think that's why we've co-opted this practice. It's definitely because we have some internal work that we need to do. And if yoga is teaching us to do anything, it's teaching us to check our shit for real and unpack it and pack light, or throw away the luggage because we don't need it, whatever you want to do. But yeah, definitely. Anything else?
Yeah, I was just going to add to, you just answered like 3 questions, so I'm not really sure, but I like that you brought up Kemetic. I like that we talked about appropriation. I love that nobody's called me out on my name, by the way.
You can have Raja. I don't mind. Be the king. My last name's King. It's
right.
cool.
I think it's a very, I think you actually articulated it really well. And I just wanted to add to it with the way that we honor the indigenous practice. And you have to understand that India was a huge caste system and still is. So a lot of that sort of thinking is very present. And the gurus, the teachers that brought yoga over to this country were very problematic. And actually, we could have quite a talk about the patriarch and the way that played out and the way that, so you have this, okay, so you have that same dollar, you have these gentlemen coming over and sharing this practice, not all of them, but the main ones that we are all coming from as far as the America, and then it evolved, right? And we've capitalized it, it's become a huge thing. It's like white is white is white is white, right? So at the tree, what we've always done is it's about the practice. I'm not trying to teach anybody to think anything. I'm trying to get people to connect to themselves. And whatever they find is what they find. What's going on inside them is for them. So I just share practices that are deeply connected in my own healing, right? I create an access. So here, this is what this practice is. What do you discover? So it becomes, I trust what's in all of us. So there's nothing, again, to teach, yet to respect the philosophy, the history, the ancestry, and we go all the way back to Kemet. So like in the training, the history module, this didn't start this way. It had to evolve this way. Is taught by an African-American man, and he starts with civilization and Kemetic yoga, Mayan yoga. And the thing is yoga is a spiritual practice. It's not asana. So a lot of times people are like, oh, yoga, down dog. Actually, no, it's another spiritual practice. And it's just like mindfulness and as, as far as Buddhism goes. But really it's a practice. You could just stop everything and just fucking practice and then come talk to me. Then let's have a conversation. Notice your mind, notice your breath, be connected with what is happening. Life is only happening right now. Literally only happening right now. Wherever the fucking heart is beating, wherever you're hearing sounds, wherever you're breathing, wherever your body is where life is happening. Everything else is in the mind. So the more you create that relationship with life, this moment right now, it will serve. In my experience, it will serve, and it will lead you to lots of wonderful places as far as staying grounded, healing, less stress. We can get all kinds of weird about it to make it sound sexy, and you don't have to. But that's the core of it, is bringing people back to themselves and honoring ancestry, but letting it be personal, right? It's like honor ancestry, yet exactly what Gwendolyn was saying. She's not Indian. I'm not Indian. But the practice was meant for all of us. It was shared for all of us. Yeah. It is only the classism and the caste and the way it's commodified that has made it what it is. The practice is the practice.
Yeah.
So that in your comments, both Gwendolyn and Raja, there are a couple of things that lead us to a question from Yana about spiritual ego. And Yana, would you like to ask your question?
Oh yeah. Hi everyone. It was less of a question and more of a statement that with teaching yoga and mindfulness, it is very important to also teach about boundaries, emotional intelligence, spiritual bypassing, spiritual ego. Because what happens in all of the spiritual practices, I've been a yoga teacher for many years and in that world for many years. The cliques exist there, the caste system exists there. All of those things that we're talking about exist there. So without us bringing the education and breaking it down, the transparency, in teaching people how to be advocating for themselves and how to connect with themselves, it is still a grounds for everything we're talking about in this session today. And I'm a teacher of Kundalini yoga and meditation. And Raja, I'm sure you're familiar with what's happened with our teacher, and in terms of the allegations that were true about rape and sexual harassment and so forth. And in our community, that is the one thing that we've been talking about a lot is, well, how are we going to change the system that has come, that we've been a part of? And it is through education, and it is through telling your teachers, this was the past, this is what happened, this is what we're doing to prevent it. This is how you can help to not put yourself in situations where you feel like you're less than your teacher and that they have all the answers. Because in a spiritual practice, they don't. Like you said, they're just a vehicle, but you're the one with the power for your own journey. So that's all. That's just kind of the main point I wanted to make. Just to remember that, that in that community, we're still very sensitive to. It's not the answer unless we continue to do the work.
Yeah, it's uncomfortable.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it goes back to the ego. So it's like, as soon as the ego is threatened by, I grew up Christian, right? So there was always this concept of being a good Christian. And anything that I did that would challenge that, if I wasn't conscious, then I would find a lot of ways to ignore that and to pretend it's not real. Because I would be so scared to challenge this idea that I am not a good Christian. And so that happens, whether it's a yogi like concept, it's so the same, right? All of that ego. And so like we look at Pema Chodron, who really a lot of people were disappointed, and she's a Buddhist teacher, another allegation, and she chose to ignore it. This is going into the patriarch consequences. And that was hard for her. And I think because when we identify too much in any spiritual practice or system, we're drinking the Kool-Aid. You have to stay critical. You have to understand that it's inside, that it's not a teacher, it's not a scripture. Those were all supposed to be gifts. They were all supposed to be helpful. They weren't supposed to be what we thought the answer was, kind of thing. And it's not about, it's just not individual, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So I want to recognize that we're after 5 o'clock now, so we'll at least formally close this messy conversation. But everyone is invited to hang out for another 15, 20, 30 minutes, if you like, for a more informal conversation.
Is that possible? I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I think so, assuming that Raja and Gwendolyn are available. But thank you all for being here as part of this. Remember to be in touch if there are topics or people we should be in touch with. Email us, and we'll see you soon. Mm-hmm. And maybe one way to start off the more informal part. Thank you so much to both Raja and Gwendolyn. Mihi had a question about Gwendolyn's claim that the electric grid in Ghana is racist. Could you say something about that?
Sure. Okay, let me break it down, because I said, you say things in a rush, but really. So we have big offshore, like electrical grids, people obviously that help us power the country of Ghana. And I, for example, I don't think a lot of people know, but like Turkey owns half of, is it half now? It's a little bit more than that. The country of Turkey is providing us this, gosh, I can't remember what they call it. It's middle of the ocean, some powered thingy. It's bad. I should know this, but that's helping us generate electricity. And when I mean the electricity grid is racist, I'll flesh that out for you so it doesn't sound like a flagrant statement. The kind of feelings that the Turkish community has in Ghana and the local Ghanaian community, there's like, the way they bump heads is just trauma, and it's a lot. And there's actually quite a bit of, mixing, obviously, that's happened when it comes to the Lebanese community that's been here, as well as the Turkish community that's been here in Ghana. So when I say even the electricity grid is racist, what I really mean is there's a country that owns the product of how we, you know, how I can have these beautiful lights that I'm not so sure are going to stay on. And when they're having political conflicts and it's a racialized issue that they end up having, we have wattage problems, we have consumption issues, money is lost here and money is found in other places that don't happen to be our, you know, electricity grid. So I didn't want to say that fast, but it's real, because unfortunately, just the structure that even like the electricity that's being provided for us, and how the relationship we feel towards a huge country like Turkey, and then the individuals that come here, and our relationships there. We have a very interesting relationship as far as trades and ports and embargoes and all that. That's politics stuff. But yeah. So like, you know, Turkey is having an issue at the moment. So are our lights. So yeah, we have that problem. So.
I'm not sure what we're supposed to do in this phase.
The floor is open.
No worries.
Yeah, the floor is
Right,
open.
so
Sometimes a moment of silence is a good place to collect thoughts before they.
So Raja, thank you so much, both of you, for being here and sharing this experience with us. Raja, I'm curious what you said early in the talk today about you know, it taking so long for those of us white people to get on board with making changes and being leaders in doing that in whatever ways we can. And also, even you remarked on your own hesitation to do that yourself in training leaders. And I'm just curious, in your experience, what strategies have been helpful for you in helping other white people in your environments to join you as we are trying to invite more white faculty and more white students to be engaged in these conversations. I know part of this is also relational, and I think we have a lot of work to do to make relationships that we thought were stronger than they are. But I am also curious, in the environment that you work in, what strategies have you found helpful where you're already a community?
Yeah, I mean, to be completely honest, I have been, you know, avoidant of this work as much as possible. Right. And not really. I mean, but really, like, meaning it's so challenging. And I feel like I haven't figured it out. Like when I would run a workshop, I'd be like so defeated. Right. And like, I didn't nothing helped. Like, and then I would, you know, there's a lot that I could even break down in that. And then of course, later on, they're like, you know, people are like, oh my gosh, you know, so it did do something. I think there really is this, for me, and the work that works for me is that the self-responsibility. There's this way that we think about race as white people, as if, or people, not Black people, anti-Blackness is somehow separate. And so that internal work to me is really important. Context, just educate. It's like, look at the way we celebrate things. Look at Thanksgiving, where like everything is just constructed as a lie. So the more that you're just going, kids, this is a lie. Hey guys, I actually am persuading, I should talk to you later, because I persuaded my brother, my cousin, and their girlfriends. I'm trying to experiment because I kind of know where their mind is. My one cousin, like this is how much I've been thinking about this, because it is just like we look at power structures, right? You know, we've done this where it's like, where are people at on these spectrums? So for waking up to race as a white person and our own responsibility, everybody's on this spectrum. So we're talking Trump voters as an example. are going to be a part of the spectrum. And then we got right next to it all the people that think Trump is the problem. Right? But how do we get everybody over? How do we move them over? I think there's got to be a human connection. There's got to be something. I don't know because I don't even know what has really worked yet. I wish. I look at people, like the thing about like poor white people, right? People that are Trump voters or these more extreme. It's like, there was a meme, not to bring up a meme, but it was great. Back, I saw it years ago, and they was talking about how Jim Crow was fed to the poor whites instead of food, right? This concept, right? Good, I know, I loved it. I was actually gonna like Google search because I was like, I want to find that meme. It was great, but it's true. Like there's this, they're in complete poverty. They're unhealthy. They're poverty affects, has effects, right? And so this idea of superiority is the only thing that makes them think that they have value in life on some level, because it doesn't fit any other place. So I wonder, what does it mean? What does this mean? Are people completely depressed? Like, how fucked up are we? Did I have to be at a certain place in my own work and my own trauma before I opened that tree to be able to handle that level of accountability and be able to fucking get on my knees? Maybe.
Well, sure. I mean, why not? I think we all
has that privilege and that centering to get, like, who has time? Who really wants to, right? I'm saying, like, how do we, like, is that necessary?
I don't think anybody really wants to. Like, I wrote something today. No one really wants therapy.
Right.
No one's like, as much as we love our therapists, at the end of the day, no one is like, can't wait to talk about my problems with someone. And I can't wait. Like, no one meets that moment with like happiness. It's just tough work. And I think nothing else has been working. Maybe we should start the tough work. Maybe we need to do the deep work, the spiritual work, because how we've been doing it before hasn't been getting us the kind of results.
It's like, we gotta be real, right? Like, to me, I think it's like working with youth. They're so hungry. They're so hungry for someone to just be fucking real with them and respect them. I'm cussing. I know. I'm sorry for folks that are sensitive to that vernacular. It's true. Like, I like that it's just like the more honest and less personalized. So because white people get upset when we talk about race, they get defensive and they attack. That's happened many times. So be okay with that. You have to be comfortable disappointing. You have to be comfortable making people uncomfortable at a dinner party. I have been so judged. Like, even in this space today, I'm sure. Right. So, be okay with that. Know what you're doing it for, and just keep doing it. Cause I don't have a formula. I haven't figured it out. What's how do we make this pill go down as fast as possible? Because we're running out of time. It seems that we are running out of time. Yeah. Like, we are really just at this point, because we understand what we're doing to the planet simultaneously. And we've been doing it for, it's just real. It feels real, but maybe it's always felt real, and I don't know. But if you guys figure it out, let me know too, what the magic, right.
what the magic, because I really wish you wouldn't have brought like the earth in this and all of that, but because I think, we play around with this thing of time, and there is no more, we keep saying that, and I often ask, when is that moment gonna happen? Like, when is chaos gonna strike, or like more chaos gonna strike, so that we can realize the most basic foundational things about us. I think even in that, there are some people who don't believe in, say, like, absolute truths. Like, is it an absolute truth that we are all the same species. You know, there's some people out there who are like, white people are a different species of humans. They're not Homo sapiens. They're Homo something, something, something. I mean, how do we even break it down to that level? Well, I mean, I learned that was something in college, but yeah, I really, 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 really want to know what it is, like that little tick, because, you know, I see it's us and our 18 people and our 45 people, and 45 people are thinking in their head, I'm done. Like, this is enough. And I really want to know if you guys figured out, send me an email or something, send me a bird or whatever. All the way to Ghana.
I want her to come back, but we got to help out before
No, I'm not coming back. You know I'm not coming back.
No, Gwen's not coming back unless we change it. So
yeah, I'm scared, you guys. I can't.
Prina, do you want to jump in the conversation? I see you're writing some things in the chat, but at this point we can just jump in.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I was saying that I think that the issue that's at the root of racism and, you know, superiority and all of that is a part of the same root of the destruction of our planet. I think it's all connected. And it has a lot to do. I feel like intuitively, it just has a lot to do with money, like everything else does. And so then we have to look at, okay, so then what is the real issue underneath money then?
That's got it sticky.
Yeah, because it feels like everything stems from a space. And if we don't address that internal space that has nothing to do with anything else, you know what I mean? Like it's a byproduct, everything else is a byproduct, but has that core of whatever that is. And if we don't address that, and I don't know if we can change people's minds, but at least to become aware that this is an issue, that this is how we can possibly, I don't know, address the issue. It's so deep-seated that I don't know when things will actually change to the point where, you know, it starts going another direction. Because right now we're trying to catch up. And I'm also in that boat of like, hopefully, I don't know, you know, like I feel like we can do these individual things, of course, and these collective things together to do individual things out in our lives. But I don't know. I'm in that space. Thinking, well, there's a horrible problem going on, and how do we put the scale back in balance? Because I think that's what intuitively I feel like we need, balance.
So, you know, that I want to jump into the conversation a little bit.
Welcome, David.
Hi, thank you. But because it seems like we're getting to an old question, you know, do good people make good states, or do good states make good people? And you know, so you know, I don't know the answer to that. I know in teaching a long time ago, I figured out that you give up working on the outcome when you're teaching someone. The secret of teaching is to give that up and to show up as authentically and intimately as you can, and then let it be. But that may work in a classroom. I don't know that it works politically, because these are large political issues that sort of need to be addressed and not something you get to figure out 20 years down the road. So that pushes me to think, well, maybe it's the state makes good people. You know, that policy, structures, systems provide people the opportunity to be better or worse than they otherwise would be. I don't know what you guys think of that.
I mean, it's interesting. I mean, this is where I contradict myself in some worlds, right? I'm very radical. I can talk about really dark issues. And the next moment, I'm going to tell you that I actually think there is a clarity at the core of all of us, like that which can observe our mind. Like if you can observe your thought, you know you're not your thought, right? So there's like what you're saying, David, like the seed watering is a way, you know, Thich Nhat Hanh frames it that way. It's like watering seeds, right? So the state waters different seeds. In this state, waters seeds of greed, domination, oppression, you know, all of those fruits, right? So that is naturally going to be fed, and some people resist because I don't actually think it feels good to us to do what we do. I think part of the reason it's been so successful is because people don't realize what they're doing. And I've noticed when people do realize what they're doing, that they want to do it differently. So there's something in us. And that's why I think it's so strategic how we have done white supremacy in this country, because people are like, what do you thinking? And so, you know, so to me, it's yeah, that was what came up for me in that.
Amy's iPad is writing questions. Just ask your questions, Amy's iPad.
Yeah, Amy. She said, let the disadvantaged group educate the privileged group instead of making assumptions.
Yes, amen to that, Amy.
Sure.
Here she is.
Okay.
Yeah. I was listening to you guys, and I was thinking about my line of work. I work with a lot of immigrant families and low-income families, and I see that in our services we give out there, we always come in as a savior, I'm going to say, to give services to the families, but we're starting to learn to ask questions, ask the families, what do they need? What resources do you need? What do you need for your family? And I feel like if we are going to change the way of helping and working together, we need to ask instead of making assumption of what people want and need. And that's how we can be able to build the best communication skills, the best way of changing all of this that's happening around us. We can't just say, oh, maybe because we think they don't have this, we should give this to them. We need more of what is it that we can do to help you, and wait for them to invite and give us the idea, give us an idea of what that will really help our communities and stuff. I work with preschoolers.
Mm-hmm.
And I was listening to someone mentioning that we have to start very young with our young ones to change the direction we're going. And in order to do that, we have to start a conversation very young. We have to model giving respect and open the space for the young ones to lead us in the right way of this change that we looking forward to. That's what I meant about the people who have the ability to make the change, that to be
I think
We might have lost her.
you dropped for a minute, Amy, at the end there.
Yeah. I mean, I completely agree with her.
Totally.
yeah. I think we need whoever have the ability to support to step back and let the communities and the people who are oppressed take the lead.
Yeah.
And give and help direct everyone in the right direction, every line of work we are working in. So we can't solve it when we making assumptions. We have to really know what our people in our community are thinking and what help they need.
Yeah, totally.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I think Raja, I feel like you've always done a good job at that. And I think even the way we were taught to guide people and not necessarily like lead them, because they're gonna figure out the answers on their own. And I definitely resonate with her when she is saying that she works with a lot of immigrants and like asking the community, what do they need, and what do you really need? Like, not like, I really want this iPhone. Like, what do you need? Like, I really want power to go without an issue at the end of the day, or I really want to be warm at night when I'm sleeping. Like, I completely understand that and get that. And as long as there are people out there who are willing to ask these communities, what do they need? Because a lot of the times we go in thinking, yeah, we know what they want. We know exactly what they want because we have it that they want. Yeah, I feel a lot of that here. I'm the immigrant here, so that's the interesting thing. And they don't think I need anything, but I do. But at the same time, going into their community, trying to offer assistance, trying to get them to come to this other side, because we all need this education and this re-education. It's hard for me to ask them, well, what do you need? Like how do I package this neat little yoga? How do I convince you that you need this too? Because that's really what my biggest job is. How do I help you need this? Because I need you to need it, or we're gonna drown. But yeah, that too. But man, someone has a student in Ghana. Whew, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Jacqueline, you want to bring your voice in?
No, I was wondering because my student has been there for several years. Hi, Brenda. My student has been here for several years and graduated about 12 years ago, and immediately left the United States and went to Africa to help. So he's been in the Republic of Congo and Ghana. I ran programs to build schools and to help small towns build themselves up and resources and everything. And he just has this energy. And I often ask him, like, how do you maintain that, energy? Because I feel like a lot of people are tired, including myself. Like, and especially when you look at the older generation that are out there now, they're like, leave it to the youngins. They're going to do it. They can make it happen. And I'm like, we still need you there, present, to mentor as well as everything else. So, but like you said, the psychology of it and the energy of it and trying to maintain it in this healing process, it just seems sometimes unattainable. Like, I know meditation is important, but at the same time, there's got to be something that we can do to keep ourselves motivated, other than the list isn't finished yet. So I was just looking for some guidance, and not only for myself, but also for him, because I talk to him often, and he's going, if that makes sense.
I mean, I'm going to be pro all the way. I'm a big fan of everybody African American napping, resting.
All of us,
yes. So I really mean that. And if anybody that's on Instagram, there's this amazing woman. She's in Georgia, and she's called the NAP Ministry, NAP Ministry, and she's an African American woman, and she really kind of pushes this narrative that NAP is a form of resistance. And when you really look at the way that the Black body has been taken and controlled, and all the money that is really owed, yeah, I'm pretty sure, at least for the next few generations, everybody should just rest and eat grapes or whatever, like restore. I so mean that. I really do. I think we're so caught in production and the capital. So even we can talk all about race, and then we're gonna all feel guilty for taking a day off, and we got to stay busy, and I got to do this, and I got to, and hustle, all in this stress. While so I'm gonna promote rest. That's all I'm gonna say about that.
Yeah. And I think she said she had a student. I doubt he's not tired. I'm sure he's very tired. I'm sure he's exhausted. Because even what you wrote about him, I was tired. I was like, well, that's a lot. So I don't do that shit. That's a lot. So I can absolutely imagine. Yeah. I mean, I used to work in a junior high school, and I didn't make it because my mouth is a little bit too much, and that space wasn't ready. It wasn't ready for me to teach life. I couldn't teach English. That's the last thing I cared about. I wanted to teach like relationship. I wanted to teach like understanding self and knowing who self is, so you can be a productive person in the world. So I definitely, like Raja says, take your rest and take all of it that you can. And it's not even just meditation, even if it's just any kind of moment to not think about it. Like I used to like kind of get down on myself about trying to empty my brain because I don't want to think about it anymore. But we need it. There are often times where the last thing I want to think about is how heavy this world is. And meditation is a great way. But sometimes meditation is too friendly and it's not enough. And I don't want to sit there and focus on my breath because I'm hyperventilating and I'm like, I can't breathe anymore. So how do I even try to do that? But definitely, we're all tired. And if I could say anything, like, although it doesn't mean anything, like I got room in my bed if you want to sleep. Like I got a shoulder you could lay on. Cause I think that's something that we need to acknowledge in people, because we know that this is not an individual fight. And we know that there's billions of people in this world that we all want to just be okay. And some of us need to take shifts. And we can't all do it 24 hours a day. And so when you see that friend and you talk to that student, make sure that they have somebody there that they can rest on and they can lean on and they can go to sleep, because you don't want them to crash. You don't want them to rest from depression. You don't want them to crash because of that. But if anything, acknowledge that we're tired. And you say you think the younger generation, we're not gonna do nothing. We need you guys. Like, we're not doing things as much as you want us to do, We fight. We got some fight in us. But we need our aunties, and we need our uncles, and we need our mom figures and our father figures, because we don't know what the fuck we're doing either. And we need as many collective bodies as possible, because this is a family thing. Like this, we now have to acknowledge that we are a family and we have to take care of each other. So I'll do my best to make sure that everybody gets the rest that they need, because when we wake up, we got to keep going. We got to keep going. As sad as it is to keep checking things off that list, I'm perfectly fine with the list going on and on and on and on and on and on and on, because I'm gonna check it off. I'm gonna check it. That's okay. I'll go sleep. Somebody will, give me a blanket. That's cool. But that's like the reality of it. We have to acknowledge that if it takes hundreds of years to build up a system that people it's so ingrained in them, it's genetic at this point. It's it's neuroscience. It's not just metaphysical. It's literally the essence of now our life and our being. Then it's going to take hundreds of years. And like, that's cool. That's we're going to have to sit with that, and we're going to have to sit with the long journey that it's going to be. I love instant gratification. Trust me. I love it just as much as I love instant mashed potatoes and instant coffee, which is it's nasty. But what can we do? It's not going to be instant. I would love the world to turn over tomorrow, but that's a joke.
Along the lines of resting, we've imposed on you, and we really appreciate your generosity in staying this extra time for this conversation. But we do need to wrap it up and let you guys go rest. But thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Gwendolyn, so much. Thank you, David. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you soon.
Yeah, I want to say thank you also to both of you for being our guest facilitators, conversationalists. Gwendolyn, it must be, what time is it now? I was looking, 12:30, right? Your time?
Yeah.
Thank you for staying up so late. No.
Second wind.
Yeah, right? She's ready to go.
And Roger.
Get a nap in. Please get a nap in.
I love it. I mean, honestly, I tell students that all the time. It's ridiculous.
And what I hear is that our solidarity is what's going to carry us through. And thank you for all of your solidarity.
Thank you, Kirsten.
I love your passion.
Thank you.
And I love you really genuinely talking about a topic. I mean, pulls all of us into it. I mean, I learned so much from you both. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, Jacqueline. Okay.
So, not sure why Amy's still on and Gwendolyn.
I'm trying to.
We have a way to.
I don't know how to do this. Okay, give me a second.
There we go.
Okay.
There we go.
Okay. Hi, guys.